I have noticed that the older I become, the more troubled I am whenever I make a mistake. And the reason for that is because when I make a mistake, and I do from time to time, there's always a problem, some kind of pain, maybe physical pain or financial pain or emotional pain that comes with a mistake. Well, really the same thing holds true when it comes to Medicare. You don't want to make a mistake. Sad to say, people still make mistakes all the time with Medicare. And when they do, there's consequences. There's some kind of pain, usually financial pain. And so we don't want you to make mistakes. So what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to share with you the 3 common Medicare mistakes that people make when they turn 65 so that you can avoid every one of them. All right, so let's look at mistake number 1, and this is all about the Medicare A and B enrollment, okay? There's really 2 aspects that are potential mistakes. The first one is, for some of you, notice the word not enrolling at 65 is a mistake. In other words, there are people that have to start Medicare at 65. They have no other option whatsoever. Let me tell you who that would be. Anyone who is no longer working or their spouse is no longer working, and so you have no employment option available to you, you have to go on Medicare at 65. The second group of people would be anyone that is actually covered by some kind of a COBRA insurance. And the reason for that, because at 65, if you're on COBRA, COBRA becomes the second payer. So you have to enroll in Medicare to put Medicare in the first payer position if you're going to keep COBRA beyond 65. And if you don't enroll into Medicare, you become the first payer, all right? And so it'd be a huge mistake not starting at 65 if we have COBRA insurance. The same thing holds true for TriCare. TriCare is for insurance for people that are retired military, not VA benefits, but regular retired military. And the same thing, it's like COBRA, because TriCare gets you to 65, but after 65, TriCare only pays second to Medicare. You must enroll into Medicare. And the same thing is going to hold true if you are working for what we call a small employer. Now, a small employer defined by Medicare simply means there's 19 or fewer employees on the payroll. And if you work for a company and have a group plan, 19 or less on the payroll, then what happens is you have to start Medicare at 65 because at a small employer, group insurance only pays second to Medicare. And again, you don't enroll in Medicare, you become the first payer. So really, all 3 of these are the same. You can have these insurances. I wouldn't keep this in very long for sure, but if you have these, it's fine. But again, Medicare must pay first, therefore you have to enroll. And then the last group of people would be anyone that is on what we call an Affordable Care Act plan, the healthcare exchange plan. And so what happens at 65 is you can technically keep an ACA plan, but you wouldn't want to because all the benefits of that ACA plan, the tax subsidies, the cost sharing, the reduced premium, all those benefits of the ACA plan are gone. So once you're 65, that ACA plan, you would have to pay the full premium, you'd pay the full deductible, co-insurance, max out of pocket, all that is going to be out of your pocket. So they really incentivize you to get off of ACA plans at 65. So here's my point. It would be a huge mistake for anyone that in these particular situations to not go on Medicare at 65. So you got to enroll in a Medicare A and B. If you're on Social Security, you're automatically enrolled in A and B, and if you're not, you're going to have to initiate that enrollment. Now, in this same realm, as we talk about A and B mistakes, we have a second possibility, and that would be for others of you. Now, some have to start Medicare at 65, but for others of you, enrolling into Medicare at 65 would be a huge mistake. Well, who would that be? Well, that would be anyone who is still working. So in other words, you or your spouse are still working, and you're covered by a group plan that has 20 employees on the payroll or more, and that is a good group plan, meaning it's better than your Medicare option. And so you would not want to enroll into Medicare, and especially you wouldn't want to enroll into Medicare if you have a good group plan and you have other people in your family covered by that plan, because if you drop that group plan, that's going to affect your spouse or affect your children that are covered up in age 26. There are plenty of people out there that have good group plans and they need to stay on those, and they don't have to enroll in Medicare A or B. Now, sometimes people hear that even if they do stay on a group plan, that's 20 or more company, large employer, that they still have to enroll into A only. And folks, I'm telling you, that's not true. They hear that they have to enroll into A only, and if they don't, they'll be penalized. Again, it's not true, because the only people that are ever penalized on Medicare Part A are those that have to buy A, which is only 1% of the Medicare population. Most people that take A are going to get A at a zero premium. Why? Because we paid in for 10 years, 40 quarters, 10 years worth of taxes into Medicare. Either we did or our spouse did, and so the majority of people get Medicare Part A at zero premium. And therefore, if it's zero premium, there's never a penalty whenever you take it, whether it's 65 or 75 or 105, it does not matter. The only people that have to pay a penalty are those that don't have 40 quarters. They have to buy it. 30 to 39 quarters right now, they have to pay $278 a month for Part A. If someone has 0 to 29 quarters, that costs them $505 a month. And here's my point. Only the people that have to buy it, these right here that don't have 40 quarters, that's the group that's penalized, and it's truly 1% of the population. So 700,000 people. So the majority of people, 69 million people, do not have to pay for Part A, so they will not be penalized. So my point is, I don't want you to enroll in Part A thinking you have to do it, and if you don't, you'll be penalized, because that's not true. And this is why it matters. And this is why I'm saying it could be a mistake to enroll into Medicare A and B at 65 if you have a good group plan. Because why? Because this group plan pays first, and A and B is over here in the second payer position. And so not a huge deal when A doesn't cost you anything, but B cost. This year, it cost $174.70 a month. So you're going to have to start paying for that Part B, and Medicare's in the second payer position. And so if you have a good group plan, in my opinion, that is a total waste of money. And the big caution here is for those of you that are on Social Security, that you're automatically enrolled into Medicare A and B, Medicare card shows up. What do you do with that if you have a good group plan? Well, what I would do, I'd return the card and just have A only. You can return the card, you can fill out a form called a 1763, send it to your local office, and you can disenroll in from Medicare Part B. And again, that's as long as we have a group plan that's large and they're in the first payer position and you have very good coverage. So I would not take B if I was in this scenario. Now let's go back one more item. Now, is it all right for someone to have A only? And it is okay. But what happens in the A only position, remember this, if you enroll into Medicare A only and you're with a large group plan, if you have a high deductible plan at work that has a health savings account attached to it and you enroll into A only, you can put no new money into your HSA. The money that's there is your money. You just can't contribute any longer. So I think it'd be far better if you have an HSA option to not do anything at all with Medicare A. You'll not be penalized. Now we know why. And keep contributing to that HSA. I'm shooting this video in 2024. I think the limits this year are $4,150 for individual, double that for family. And then if you're over 55, which you probably are, you can put an extra $1,000 in. So I think it's far more beneficial to contribute to that HSA and build up that HSA, that pre-tax money, tax exempt, tax deferred, all that, than it is to go ahead and enroll in a Medicare A only to put Medicare in the second payer position. Now, if you don't have an HSA, then it's fine. I would encourage you to go ahead and enroll into Medicare A only. Medicare in that position pays second. They do not pay in the second position co-pays. They do not pay any deductibles, but they may pay some co-insurance if you had a hospitalization. So it's fine to take A only. I just want to make sure you know you don't have to take it because you'll be penalized, and I wouldn't take it if I have an HSA that you want to continue to contribute to. So those are mistakes revolving around Medicare A and B. Now let's look at mistake number 2. Now this particular mistake has to do with Medicare supplemental plans. Now just as a reminder, when someone has a supplemental plans, that means they enrolled into Medicare A and B. Medicare A and B have 6 financial gaps, things that you're responsible for. Remember this, when it comes to Medicare, the only thing Medicare pays 100% is preventive services, and that's it. So there's always some kind of a financial liability you would have, whether it's in the hospital or skilled nursing, or it's on an outpatient or physician basis. That's the A and B of Medicare. So we have 6 gaps. So the majority of people don't want that liability, so what they will do is they will buy a plan. They will either buy a G plan today, which covers 5 of the Medicare 6 gaps. The one it doesn't cover on the G plan would be the Medicare B deductible, which this year is $240. $240 on the B deductible. So when I have a G plan, what's happening is that's all I'm out of pocket beyond my premium. The second popular plan right now is called the N plan. About 70% of all people get Gs, 30% get Ns. N plan covers 4 of the 6 gaps. Again, you'd be responsible for the $240, that's the deductible. You'd be responsible for excess charges if and when they occur, not very common, less than 5%, but that's a 15% addition added to the Medicare bill by that physician. If it happens, you got to pay for it if you have the N plan. Plus, every time you see a doctor, you could have a $20 copay. Every time you go to the emergency room, you can have a $50 copay. So we've just got some additional out-of-pocket expenses on the N plan. Both are good options, so you can't go wrong really either one. You just have to decide what you're most comfortable with. What I find is that people that want to know they have the most comprehensive coverage with no surprises typically get a G. Those that are all right with taking on a little bit extra copays, a little extra risk, get the N plan. Again, they're both really good plans. The G and the N difference is about $30 a month in premium. So some people say, not worried about the $30. I'll go for the more comprehensive. Others say, I like the $30. Doubt I'll have any excess. Rarely go to the doctor, so they'll save the $30 a month, which is certainly fine. But here's my point. If I get a supplemental plan, I'm filling in the gaps. But what you have to be aware of is you want to make sure that when you decide that you want to get this G or N plan, that you do so at the right time. Let me explain. Hey, if you found this video helpful and you want to see more Medicare information just like it, then go below, right below the video, and you can give us a thumbs up as well as subscribe to our channel. And every time I put a new video, which is about 2 every week, you'll be notified of that video, and others just like you who need this vital information will get it as well. All right, and that right time has to do with what we call the Medigap open enrollment period, okay? And so the mistake revolving this one is if someone misses the Medigap open enrollment period. And in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, every state requires that anyone in that state is given this window of opportunity to get any Medigap policy, any of the letters, the G, the N, or any of the others, any company that's offered in your state. And so we don't want you to miss that because it is not a lifetime opportunity. It's once in a lifetime opportunity, and it lasts for 6 months. So let me explain. Let's say right now I'm shooting this video February 1st of 2024. So let's suppose that someone starts their Medicare A and B right at 65 and they're starting this month. And we're talking about their Medigap open enrollment period, also called their guaranteed issue window. Again, it's 6 months. So what that means is this, and let me give you a little practical information here. You do not have to wait to apply for a Medigap policy until this window opens up. You don't have to. You can do it in advance. Most states, anywhere from 3 to 6 months. So most people are doing this in advance. They apply for a Medigap policy, that G plan, that N plan, and they do it in advance so that when their Medicare goes into effect, their G or N plan goes into effect at the same time. That's the way it works in the practical world. But the Medigap open enrollment period specifically says you can apply in advance, but this window now, once we've hit our B date, that's the key, it's the B date. This lasts then for 6 months where we can still get any policy we want, any company, any letter that's in our state. So that 6 months would be here. All of February, March, April, May, June, July. 6 months, which means if I ever wanted to get a Medigap policy after August 1, 2024, now that that OEP period, that 6 months is over, this point forward, if I ever want to get one, now I have to medically qualify. Except in 4 states, and that would be New York, Connecticut, Maine, and Massachusetts. They're open enrollment for Medigaps all year. Well, that's not true. Most of the year. But the point is, in 46 of the other states, other than New York, Connecticut, Maine, and Massachusetts, now this opportunity is closed, and now you have to medically qualify. So people that have health problems, if they don't get it during this period of time, they may never get it for the rest of their life. So we don't want people to miss this opportunity because this opportunity says there's no health questions asked. Insurance company has to take you. They have to approve the policy. They have to cover all your pre-existing conditions during this 6 month window. So we don't want you to miss that. Now, we don't want to make one more note. Let's suppose that someone takes A only at 65. Let's say they do it right now. They're turning 65. They're going to keep working, covered by a large group plan, and they have an A date of 2/1/2024. That's the A of Medicare. So they take an A only, remember, which is fine as long as they don't have an HSA. But then they enroll into Medicare B 2 years later. So they want to start at 2026, they're going to retire, and now they're ready to go on Medicare B. So what I'm trying to teach you is this Medigap open enrollment period is tied to the B date. Over here, it started when they were 65 because A and B began at the same time. But if they delay taking B, it's fine, and we haven't hurt ourselves because now the 6-month window opens up 2 years later. So again, February, March, April, May, June, July, and now August of 2026. After that, we'd have to apply to be able to get a supplemental plan. So here's the point. Don't miss this opportunity to get that wonderful quality insurance called a Medigap policy. Now, the other issue dealing with Medigap policies that we don't want you to make a mistake on, and that would be this: selecting, notice, the wrong Medigap carrier. Okay? In other words, when we look at a Medigap policy, those policies are actually standardized by Medicare. So when someone decides they're going to get a G or they're going to get an N plan, regardless of the carrier that they buy that from, the coverage is going to be the same. In other words, whether a person has United Healthcare or Aetna or Cigna or Mutual of Omaha or whoever, it doesn't matter. All those carriers that are offering those Medigap policies, Anthem, Blue Cross, all of them, what's going to happen is they're going to cover the same bills. The same type of bills will be paid by all the companies, the same amount of bills paid by all the companies, because Medicare standardizes the Medigap policies. So I teach it this way. A G is a G is a G is a G is a G, regardless of who you buy it from, as it relates to coverage. Now, beyond that, there's differences. I guarantee the premiums are going to be different between carriers. The ratings of the carrier, different. Stability is going to be different. So there's variables that are different, but coverage is all the same. And so when I talk about getting maybe the wrong carrier, what I mean by that is that there are some companies that tend to be more rate stable than others. And so when we do business with someone, we're looking at what we call the initial premium. And I care about initial premium. I'm looking for a good value. Okay, but more important than the stability and the initial would be the stability of the rates. In other words, how stable has that company been in the last 5 to 10 years? How often do they take price increases? How stable are they? And so when I talk about a wrong carrier, I'm not saying that any of those carriers are bad carriers, that they won't pay bills, because they are going to. What I'm concerned about is the stability of their rates. And so we want someone that long-term we believe is going to give that stability. They're all going to go up because of medical inflation, but some companies tend to go up more frequently and more drastically. Let me explain why. So here's what happens whenever you buy a Medigap policy. Regardless of the carrier, whatever state you're going to be in, you're going to be placed in a group. Okay? And we call this in insurance a block of business. So what we have in this block of business are a variety of people typically in a whole state or part of a state. And we're going to have some people in the block that are 65 and 66 and 67. And so the insurance carrier gives us rates from 65 to 105. Within the block, in most states, we're going to have female rates, male rates, non-tobacco and tobacco rates. Now, some states are community rated, so it wouldn't matter about your age or your gender. Everyone gets the same price, right? But the whole point is we're going to come into the block, and let's just say we're a 65-year-old female, we're non-tobacco, and let's say our G rate's $115 a month. And we're a 67-year-old male that happens to be a smoker. That rate may be $135 a month. But people have different rates in the block. So these people are getting a MedSup plan around the same period of time, and they're going into this block. So what happens in the block is this. The policyholders are going to pay in their premium, and the company is going to have to pay money out in claims. That's why you paid that company a premium, to transfer the liability of those gaps to them. G plan got rid of all but one gap, and you have all but 2 gaps in some copays. But the point is, we pay in premium, company has to process claims, so we pay money out. So what happens is this. When more money is going out than is coming in, it means that block is losing business. And so if that block is losing 5%, they'll go to the insurance commissioner in the state capital, and they will petition for a rate increase of that 5%. So the insurance commissioner audits the request, make sure everything's in line, it's justifiable, and if they agree with it, then everybody in the block is going to go up 5%. So that's how price increases occur. Now, in some states, we actually see the rate go up a little bit every year because of birthday. That didn't happen with issue age, didn't happen with community. But the point is, group increases occur across the board. No matter where you are, we're going to see this happen. So here's what I'm trying to teach you. What I look for a good carrier, I'm looking for a carrier that has a large block of business, meaning they have a large market share wherever you are. Because the more policyholders that's in that block of business, the risk is spread out to more people. The net result to you is more stable rates. Okay, I use a silly illustration, but it's true. In fact, I just got off of a cruise, so this is a real world. But if you were in the ocean and you're in a canoe, I can assure you're going to feel every single wave that's hitting that canoe. It's going to have great impact, okay? But if I'm in the ocean and I'm in a cruise ship, as I just was last week, you hardly even sometimes can't tell you're in the ocean. Why? It's a large body of water, but it's also a large boat, and you just don't feel it. And so here's my point. When we have a group, we could have a smaller group, or we can have a larger group, depending upon what market share that company has. And what happens if I have a small group that's healthy, it'll be pretty stable. Okay, but if I have a small group that's unhealthy, that's like being in the ocean in a canoe. You're going to feel the impact of that by price increases. But if I'm in a large group, even though certainly there are going to be health problems, the impact of that will be not as noticeable. Prices are going to go up, but again, some companies tend to take more drastic increases, more frequent price increases, but we find that the national carriers that have larger groups typically offer our clients more rate stability. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. You want to make sure that you select the right carrier, not the wrong carrier. So we look for stability of rates. Hey, if you're finding this video to be helpful and you would like to learn more about Medicare, you'll notice up here in the right-hand corner, there's an eye. And if you'll click on that eye, it's going to take you to a 20-minute workshop. I see people make mistakes all the time, and we don't want that to happen to you. And that's why we're giving you free access to this workshop. So go ahead, click the link, and learn more about Medicare. All right, so that takes care of A and B mistakes. That takes care of supplemental mistakes. And then I want to talk about Advantage Plan mistakes. About half of all people today that are going on Medicare are selecting Advantage plans, which are called C plans, or private health insurance replacement plans. All right, and so there actually are some mistakes with these as well. And so the mistake number one is really for someone just to focus on, notice, the monthly premium offered by the plan and the perks that are offered by the plan. Now, by the way, it's attractive. I realize that. Actually, right now, there's almost 4,000 Medicare Advantage plans throughout the country, and they say that about 2 out of every 3 of those have a zero premium. All right, now I like that. Very, very nice. Zero premium, right? And they also come with all kinds of perks. They'll throw in a gym membership and usually a dental allowance, maybe some hearing aid allowance, over-the-counter card, and just various things that they throw in as perks. And again, those are very attractive as well. But here's what happens. When someone just looks at these, in my opinion, they're making a mistake. Why is that? Well, because even though we have a zero premium, it's not like it's going to be a free plan. Because if I go to the hospital, you're not going to go to the hospital for free. What's going to happen? You're going to pay a daily copay of usually about $350 a day for maybe 5, 6, or 7 days. So it's going to cost you to go to the hospital. If you go to see a specialist, you're going to pay a specialist probably about a $50 copay. If you have an MRI or a CAT scan, it's going to cost you $250 copay. You have an outpatient surgery, it's going to probably cost you $300 for that outpatient surgery. If you have durable medical equipment, CPAP machine, diabetic supplies, those kind of things, it's going to cost you probably 20% in coinsurance. But you can see what I'm saying. Yes, we have a zero premium, but is that plan going to be free? And the answer is no, it's not. It's not. You're actually going to simply pay as you go. And so what happens when someone gets an Advantage plan, they have to realize they're still taking on risk. Yes, no premium, but they're still going to pay as they go until we hit what's called the max out of pocket for the year. Most HMO plans right now are going to be somewhere from about $3,000 to $5,000 a year. PPOs are going to be somewhere from maybe $4,000 to $7,000 a year. And my point is this: so many people focus on that and they see the zero thinking it's a free plan. It's not. Not only do you have to pay Medicare Part B, that $174.70 a month this year, you also are going to simply pay as you go until you hit the max out of pocket. So yes, that's attractive, but it's not a free plan. Secondly, as we talk about perks only, I like the perks, but what you have to decide is that your primary objective is the perks that they're going to offer, because what you have to pay attention to is not just what are the perks, but how's the insurance going to work? Because remember, though you have perks, you also have networks, right? We have HMOs and we have PPOs. We're going to have to deal with those kinds of issues, all right? And so my whole point is, don't just focus on the perks that are advertised on TV, and don't just focus on the fact that it's zero premium, because it's not going to be a free plan. Now let's look at the second problem that people have with Advantage plans. Now, in addition to just looking at the premiums and the perks, there's another mistake that people often make when it comes to selecting Advantage plans, and that's this: they really don't understand the disadvantages of the Advantage plan. And frankly, a lot of agents do not share this with them because Advantage plans pay agents a higher commission and a longer commission. So the agent is really incentivized to push Advantage plans. However, there are some disadvantages that you need to be aware of, and I just want to mention them to you, and we'll close out the video. But really, number one, every Advantage plan is going to have a network of providers. Well, what does that mean? When we have a network, folks, we're either going to have an HMO or we're going to be on a PPO. Right? And so what happens is that insurance company, private health insurance company, is going to have a contract with doctors and hospitals and different providers that will provide services for you at a certain rate. And so you're going to be enrolled either to an HMO network or PPO. Well, here's the issue with this. First off, with an HMO plan, many times you have to have a referral from your primary care doctor to see a specialist. And some people are annoyed by that, others don't care. But the point is that's a rule attached to some HMOs. Also, HMOs, you cannot go out of your network. Unless it's urgent care or emergency room, you're confined to that network, which may have a lot of options or fewer options, okay? And so the point is we have limitations here. Now, when it comes to a PPO, we actually can go out of network on a PPO. Remember, you can't do it on HMO, but when we go out, it costs us a lot more money to do that. If I stay in my network, it may cost me $5,000 a year. If I go out of network, it costs me $10,000 or $12,000 a year. And so we have that benefit, but again, it costs us more. And so here's my whole point. When you enroll in an Advantage plan, one of the disadvantages is the fact that it's going to be a network plan. When you have a supplemental plan, you can go to any doctor that takes Medicare. Any hospital takes Medicare. So it's almost unlimited. Almost, not quite, but almost. But here, it's going to be limited to the providers available to you based upon those that are in that particular network. Okay, and so you just can't go anywhere. And some doctors take both, some may take one or the other, and some take none of them. All right, so that's issue number one, disadvantage. Number two will be what we call pre-authorizations. Pre-authorizations. Now, pre-authorization is something that is a little bit more on the expensive side of healthcare services. This would be an MRI or a CAT scan or a PET scan, a skilled nursing stay. It would be an outpatient surgery, a knee replacement, a hip replacement, those kinds of things. Listen, you can go to your primary care doctor with no pre-authorization, okay? You can get lab work with no pre-authorization. But they say about 70 to 72% of the services today needed on the Advantage plan are going to have to be pre-authorized or pre-approved by the insurance company. And so what's that mean? It means your doctor makes the recommendation, but the insurance company has to agree with the doctor and approve that before it's going to be covered for payment. And so if the insurance company says, no, we don't agree, they can delay the treatment, they can deny the treatment. Now, sometimes they'll approve it, but sometimes they do delay it or deny it, and that can be a real problem if someone is especially undergoing some kind of serious health issues. So with Advantage plans, we're going to have pre-authorizations, which means your doctor does not have the final say-so. It's the insurance company that carries the weight of that final decision. Now, if you have a supplemental plan, you're not going to have a pre-authorization by the insurance company because they can't. If Medicare says they'll cover it, doctor says you need it, end of story. Insurance company can never interfere in any way on that supplemental plan. All right, so that's why I'm saying that's a disadvantage. And this can be a real annoyance to people when they have health problems. And then lastly, you have to realize this. If you get an Advantage plan, okay, switching those plans is not automatic. If someone takes an Advantage plan and they stay on that plan, let's say a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, and now they want to get off the Advantage plan and they'd like to return to original Medicare and they'd like to get a supplemental plan, what now they're going to have to do is have to go through medical underwriting. So we're going to have to ask you 30 health questions. I'm going to check all your medications that you're taking now or have for the last 2 years, and we may have to get a statement from your doctor called an attending physician statement. And this information here is given then to the supplemental company, and if they don't like what they see, pre-existing conditions, they don't like some meds you're taking, there's something in your file they're not comfortable with, they do not have to issue that Medigap policy to you. Remember earlier when I taught you the first 6 months of going on Medicare B, they have to. But if you go on Advantage plan first and you stay on that year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years and you want to get off, now you're going to have to go through that process, and so you may not be able to switch, which means you may be on that Advantage plan really for the rest of your life. And again, it doesn't mean you have bad insurance, but it does mean you're going to have to live with networks the rest of your life, and you're going to have to live with those pre-authorizations. All right, so this is something many people don't realize. Why? Because agents push Advantage plans because they pay us a better commission, higher commission, and a longer commission. All right, so these are the mistakes that people often make, and we want you to avoid them.